You're burning through Grandma's money on that ridiculous startup like it's Monopoly cash, and I'm not going to stand by and watch you destroy this family's legacy," my father announced, slamming a stack of legal documents onto the conference table so hard that my sister Emily's coffee cup rattled. Around the table, my three siblings nodded in agreement, a united front prepared to stage an intervention for my concerning financial behavior. What none of them knew, what the trust attorney sitting silently in the corner was about to reveal, was that Grandma's $2 million inheritance wasn't just intact. It had become $50 million in assets, and I wasn't the beneficiary of the trust anymore. I was the trust itself. But let me take you back 4 years to where this really started. My name is Natalie Ashford, and I'm the youngest of 4 children. Growing up in Greenwich, Connecticut, I was the family oddball, the one who preferred coding tutorials to country club socials, the one who went to Cornell for computer science instead of following my siblings to Yale for law, business, and medicine. My father, Robert Ashford, made his fortune in commercial real estate. My mother came from old money, the kind that whispered instead of shouted. When my grandmother, Dorothy Chen Ashford, died at 91, she left each of her 4 grandchildren $2 million in a trust. My siblings treated their trusts like savings accounts. Emily, the eldest, used hers to buy a house in Darien. Marcus, the middle child and Dad's favorite, invested his in blue-chip stocks and treasury bonds. James, just 2 years older than me, spent his on a boat and a beach house in the Hamptons. I was 26 when Grandma died, and I had plans. The trustee, an attorney named Harold Morrison, who'd worked with our family for 30 years, called me into his office 3 months after the funeral. "Your grandmother left you something else," he said, sliding an envelope across his desk. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dearest Natalie, you're the only one who visited me every week without fail, even when you were busy with school. You're the only one who asked about my life, my work, my investments. Your siblings came for birthdays and holidays. You came because you wanted to know me. I'm leaving you the same amount I'm leaving them, but I'm also leaving you something more valuable: choice. Harold has instructions to approve any investment you propose, no matter how unconventional. Your father will disapprove. Let him." I made my first fortune going against my family's wishes, and I suspect you'll do the same. Make me proud. And Natalie, don't tell them about this letter until you've already won. All my love, Grandma Dorothy. I cried in Harold's office for 20 minutes, then I got to work. I'd been developing an AI platform for supply chain optimization during my last year at Cornell. My thesis advisor said it was interesting but impractical. My father said it was a waste of a perfectly good education. But I knew, the way you know something in your bones, that I was onto something revolutionary. I withdrew $1.8 million from my trust over 6 months. Each withdrawal required Harold's approval. Each time, he simply signed the forms and said, "Your grandmother believed in you. That's good enough for me." I used the money to found Cascade Analytics. I hired 3 brilliant engineers from MIT who'd been rejected by Google for being too unconventional. I rented office space in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. I worked 18-hour days, slept on a couch in the office, and ate ramen more nights than I care to remember. My family thought I was insane. "You're throwing away Grandma's money on some app?" Marcus said at a family dinner 6 months in. "Do you know how irresponsible that is?" "It's not an app. It's a machine learning platform that can—" "Nobody cares, Nat," James interrupted. "You're burning through your inheritance on a fantasy. When this fails, and it will fail, you'll have nothing." Dad set down his wine glass. "Natalie, I'm concerned. This startup nonsense is a phase, but you're using real money. Your inheritance was supposed to set you up for life, and you're gambling it away." "I'm investing it," I corrected. "In what? A company with no revenue, no clients, and no realistic path to profitability?" He shook his head. "When you turn 30 and that trust pays out, you'll regret this." I said nothing. I'd learned early that arguing with my father was pointless. He'd made up his mind about who I was, the impractical youngest child who needed protection from her own poor judgment. What he didn't know was that Cascade Analytics had just signed its first major client, a Fortune 500 logistics company willing to pay $400,000 for a one-year pilot program. Or that two other companies were in negotiations. Or that a venture capital firm had expressed interest in our Series A funding. I kept working, I kept quiet, and I kept proving them wrong. By the time I turned 28, Cascade Analytics had 15 employees and $8 million in annual revenue. We'd raised $12 million in Series A funding, valuing the company at $45 million. My equity stake was worth approximately $28 million on paper. I still drove a used Honda. I still lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn. I still wore jeans and hoodies to family dinners where everyone else wore designer labels. My family assumed I was barely scraping by, too proud to admit my startup had failed. "She's got that stubborn streak," I overheard Mom tell Emily at Christmas. "Just like Dorothy, refuses to admit when she's wrong." The comparison to Grandma made me smile. What they didn't know, what I'd been working on for months, was a complete restructuring of Grandma's trust. Harold and I had been meeting regularly, reviewing her original wishes and my financial situation. Grandma's letter had been clear. She wanted me to have control, not just inheritance. With Harold's help, I discovered that the trust terms allowed for modification if the beneficiary could demonstrate exceptional financial acumen and responsible wealth management. It was an unusual clause, apparently added by Grandma herself over my grandfather's objections. I'd petitioned the court to restructure the trust, presenting evidence of my company's value, my investment portfolio, and my financial management. The judge approved it 3 months before my 30th birthday. The trust didn't just pay out to me. It was restructured with me as the primary trustee, with expanded assets that now included my equity in Cascade Analytics, my real estate investments, and a diversified portfolio worth approximately $50 million in total assets. I wasn't a beneficiary anymore. I was the trust itself. I controlled it completely. My father had no idea. Neither did my siblings, until the day Dad called a family meeting to discuss Natalie's situation. I walked into the conference room at Morrison & Associates to find my entire family assembled. Dad at the head of the table, Mom beside him looking concerned, Marcus with his lawyer face on, Emily taking notes, James playing on his phone. "Thank you for coming," Dad said, as if I'd had a choice. "We're all here because we care about you, Natalie, and we're worried." "Worried about what?" "Your financial situation. We've been watching you struggle for 4 years with this startup, and it's time to face reality. You've burned through most of Grandma's money." "All of it," Marcus interrupted. "We checked the trust records. You've withdrawn nearly $2 million. The trust pays out in 2 months when you turn 30, Dad continued. "But there's barely anything left, maybe $200,000 after fees. You've essentially destroyed your inheritance." Emily leaned forward, her voice gentle. "Nat, we're not judging you. Startups fail all the time, but we can't let you walk away with nothing, so we've discussed it, and we're prepared to help." "Help how?" Dad slid the legal documents toward me. "We're petitioning the court to place the remainder of your trust under conservatorship. I'll be appointed conservator, which means I'll manage what's left of your inheritance until you can demonstrate more responsible financial behavior." I stared at the papers. "You want to take control of my trust?" "For your own good," Mom said. "Sweetheart, you're 30 years old. You need stability. You need security. This startup fantasy has gone on long enough." Marcus jumped in. "We're also proposing that you come work for Dad's company. Entry-level position, $60,000 salary. It's not glamorous, but it's steady income. Real work." "Real work," I repeated slowly. "Yes," Dad said. "Not this playing at business nonsense. Actual employment with benefits and a 401k. It's time to grow up, Natalie." I looked around the table, at my father, so certain of his righteousness, at my siblings, who'd spent their inheritances on houses and boats and safe investments, at my mother, who'd never worked a day in her life, but somehow felt qualified to judge my career choices. Then I looked at Harold Morrison, sitting quietly in the corner, his expression carefully neutral. "Harold," I said, "do you have the updated trust documents?" He nodded and pulled out a folder. "I do." "What updated documents?" Dad demanded. "The ones finalizing the trust restructuring that was approved by Judge Martinez 3 months ago." I took the folder from Harold and opened it. The restructuring that recognized my exceptional financial acumen and responsible wealth management. Emily's pen stopped moving. "What restructuring?" "The one where the Ashford family trust, specifically my portion of it, was reorganized with me as the primary trustee and administrator." I pulled out the first document. "This is the court order approving the restructuring based on my petition and supporting financial evidence." Marcus grabbed it, his lawyer instincts kicking in. His eyes widened as he read. "This says the trust is now valued at—" He looked up at me. "This can't be right. It says $50 million in assets." "It's correct," Harold confirmed. "Ms. Ashford has successfully grown her inheritance through strategic investments and business development. The court recognized her financial competence and approved the restructuring." Dad snatched the document from Marcus. "This is impossible. You withdrew nearly $2 million. You spent it on a failing startup." "Cascade Analytics isn't failing," I interrupted. "We're profitable. We have 42 employees now, $18 million in annual revenue, and we just closed our Series B funding round at a $120 million valuation. My equity stake is worth approximately $74 million. The room went silent. "$74 million?" Emily whispered. "That's the current valuation, yes. But the trust restructuring is based on a more conservative assessment of $50 million in total assets, which includes my company equity, real estate investments, and a diversified portfolio that I've been building for 4 years." I pulled out more documents. "This is my real estate portfolio. I own 6 commercial properties in Brooklyn and Queens, purchased over the past 3 years." James looked like he might be sick. "This is my investment portfolio. I've been working with a private wealth management firm since Cascade became profitable. Current value, $12.4 million diversified across domestic and international markets." Marcus was reading the documents, his face getting paler. "This is all legitimate. These are certified audits, property deeds, corporate filings." "Yes," I said, "because unlike you all assumed, I didn't waste Grandma's money. I invested it. I built something real, and I did it while you all thought I was failing." Dad found his voice. "You lied to us." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you the truth. There's a difference." I looked at each of them. "Every time you asked about my little startup, I could have corrected you. Every time you assumed I was broke, I could have shown you my bank statements. But Grandma told me something in her letter. She said, 'Don't tell them until you've already won.'" "She wrote you a letter?" Mom asked. "She did. Harold has the original in his files. She told me you'd all disapprove of my choices. She was right. She told me to make her proud. I hope I have." I stood up. "Now, Dad, about this conservatorship petition. Harold, could you explain why it's legally baseless?" Harold cleared his throat. "Given that Ms. Ashford is the primary trustee of her own restructured trust and has demonstrated exceptional financial management, any attempt to place her under conservatorship would be immediately dismissed by any judge in Connecticut. Additionally, attempting to do so could be construed as financial harassment." Dad's face was red. "This is absurd. You're 30 years old." "In 2 months, I'll be 30, I corrected. "But age is irrelevant now. The trust restructuring is complete and irrevocable. I have full control of my assets, and nobody, not you, not Marcus, nobody, can challenge that without clear evidence of incompetence or malfeasance, which I think we can all agree doesn't exist." I gathered my copies of the documents. Now, regarding your job offer, Dad. I appreciate the thought, but I'll have to decline. I'm rather busy running my own company. We're opening a London office next quarter, and I'll be spending a lot of time abroad. Natalie, wait, Emily said. I don't understand. If you're worth this much, why do you still drive that old Honda? Why do you live in that tiny apartment? Because I'm investing in my company and my future, not in impressing people. This is unbelievable, James muttered. All this time you've been secretly rich. Not secretly. I just didn't advertise it. You all assumed I was failing because I wasn't living the way you thought successful people should live. Marcus found his voice. So what happens now? Now? Nothing changes for you. Your trusts are your own. Your lives continue exactly as they were. I headed for the door. But if Dad tries to file that conservatorship petition, my lawyers will have it dismissed within 24 hours, and I'll countersue for harassment. So I'd suggest you burn those documents and pretend this meeting never happened. Natalie, Mom said, her voice small. Are you angry with us? I paused at the door. No, Mom, I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. You're my family. You should have believed in me. You should have asked questions instead of making assumptions. But you didn't, and that tells me everything I need to know about how you see me. We just wanted to protect you, Dad said. No, Dad. You wanted to control me. There's a difference. I left the conference room and walked out into the autumn sunshine. My phone buzzed immediately. Emily, then Marcus, then James, all calling. I ignored them. Harold caught up with me on the sidewalk. That went well, I laughed. Did it? Your grandmother would have loved it. She did the exact same thing to her father in 1962. Made a fortune in tech stocks when everyone thought she was wasting her inheritance on fad companies. IBM, Xerox, Polaroid, she bought them all early. She never told me that story. She was waiting for you to live it first. He handed me another envelope. She left this too. Instructions say to give it to you after you'd shown them what you're made of. Her words. I opened the envelope. Inside was a short note. Natalie, if you're reading this, you've done it. You've proven them wrong, proven yourself right, and hopefully learned that the only approval you need is your own. Here's what I learned in 91 years. Family will doubt you. Society will doubt you. You'll doubt yourself. Do it anyway. Build anyway. Succeed anyway. And when they finally see what you've built, remember, you didn't do it for their approval. You did it because you knew you could. That's the real inheritance I'm leaving you. Not money, not property, but the knowledge that you belong in any room you walk into, and you don't need permission to be extraordinary. I'm proud of you, darling girl. I always was. Love forever, Grandma Dorothy. I cried right there on the sidewalk in downtown Greenwich, Connecticut, not caring who saw. 6 months later, Cascade Analytics was featured in Forbes under 30 Under 30 Tech Founders to Watch. The article detailed how I'd built a $120 million company from a $2 million inheritance, how I'd revolutionized supply chain logistics with AI, and how I was opening international offices while most people my age were still paying off student loans. My father called after the article published. I read the Forbes piece. And? You've done well for yourself. It wasn't an apology, but I hadn't expected one. Thank you, Dad. Your mother and I would like to have dinner, just the family, to celebrate your success. I thought about Grandma's letter, about not needing their approval, about building something real because I knew I could, not because they believed I would. Maybe, I said, I'll check my schedule. I didn't go to that dinner, or the next one, or the one after that. Eventually, my siblings and I rebuilt our relationships. Emily apologized genuinely, admitted she'd been jealous that I'd had the courage to take risks. Marcus and I found common ground talking about legal structures and business strategy. James is still James, but we're cordial. Still, Dad and I speak occasionally, polite conversations about weather and work. We're never going to be close, and I've made peace with that. But here's what I learned. Inheritance isn't just money. It's not just property or stocks or trust funds. Real inheritance is the belief someone has in you, even when you don't believe in yourself yet. It's the permission to take risks, to fail, to try again. It's the knowledge that someone saw your potential before you proved it to the world. Grandma Dorothy left me $2 million. But more importantly, she left me the freedom to become who I was meant to be. I turned that $2 million into $50 million. But the real fortune was learning I didn't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary. Not even my own.